veteran team, obviously, championship team, and one of the best teams that we have in this league. I love this city. I literally, have done everything that I can. This situation is crazy. It's something that I don't think can be fixed. So, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Harden did not hold back there. Max, how does this make Harden look?
Well, first of all, sitting at the press conference, it doesn't look great because my first question is, how are you a combo guard in the NBA who can average a triple-double and you show up fat? How's that even possible? Like, if you play basketball regularly, that's hard. Harden is showing you he wants out in every single way, But how does he look in doing that? Actually, right now, really bad, and not just because he wants out, but because you don't have serious takers. That's the issue right now. And you know what it all adds up to? You reap what you sow. He is a fantastic player. And I don't even buy that you can't win a championship with him. I mean, if that's true, it's because he's not clutch enough when you need him most. But I saw them get to a Game 7 against Golden State with KD and Clay and Steph and Dre. Game 7 was at Houston. And they went at one point 0 for 27 from 3, and Harden had a dismal shooting performance. If Harden would have stepped up and just played it to his normal levels, Stephen A., you could say, well, then Golden State would have raised. Okay, fine. I believe Houston would have won. I think they would have won the finals. I think you can win with Harden if he can show up in the big moments. The whole idea is his style of play you can't win with, I don't agree with. But who wants to play with this dude at this point? Who wants to play with James Harden? And what organization is going to take that risk in really giving a king's ransom for Harden, knowing even if the players think they want to play with him, as maybe Westbrook did? After 1 year, they go, I don't want to play with this dude. Chris Paul didn't want to play with him. Westbrook didn't want to play with him. And now he's showing up fat during the season, talking about he wants out. And then John Wall's coming out and being like, after 9 games, you can't just bail. No, Harden looks really bad, Stephen A., not just because he's out of shape, not just because he's not playing up to his standards, not just because he's trying to force his way out of town, because superstars do that in the NBA. He looks bad because so far, no one's making serious offers, and it tells you something about what the league thinks about him and how things will play out if they do get him on their team. You reap what you sow.
Well, you can say that. I don't view it quite that way. I will agree with you that I don't like the way that James Harden is handling things right now. And there's no excuse for it because this is the reality of the situation. This man has averaged over 30 the last 3 years and over 29 the last 4. This dude is one of the greatest offensive weapons this game has ever seen. Out of shape and a bit overweight by at least 12 to 15 pounds from what I can tell. With no training camp, no preseason, this brother showed up in game 1 against Portland and dropped 44, showing the world this is what I can do when I'm not even nearly myself. We know what James Harden can do. So when you turn around and over the last 4 or 5 games, you're only averaging 17 points a game and you've scored under 20 about 3 or 4 straight games, that doesn't make any sense to us whatsoever because we know how lethal James Harden is. Having said all of that, here's what we need to understand. Max, you can't say what you just said because it's inconsistent with your previous messages. You talked about James Harden and how stars in the NBA have leverage and ultimately they're going to get what they want somehow, some way. Well, this is what James Harden is doing. He's trying to force his way out of Houston. He does not want to be there. Now, I don't think he wants to be in Brooklyn anymore in light of what's happening with Kyrie because he knows that's a mess that's not going anywhere. And clearly, if you're the Houston Rockets, you'd never swap James Harden for Kyrie because with Kyrie's issues, you're not bringing that to H-Town, okay? Say what you want about James Harden, but James Harden shows up on the court night in, night out. He's never engaged in load management. You can depend on him. And so in light of that reality, knowing that he's uninspired to play, but seeing what he's capable of doing when he is inspired, there is no way of wiggling around that issue. The bottom line is James Harden wants out. He wants out by any means necessary. He wants to go to Philly, from what I'm being told, even more so than Brooklyn. Now, obviously, Daryl Morey would have something to do with that. I don't know if they have the assets they're willing to give up to get a James Harden, because I think it would take a Ben Simmons, a couple of picks, maybe another player in order to get James Harden from Houston. And I don't see Philly doing that. But Daryl Morey is there, even though Doc Rivers has some say, too, along with Elton Brand. So you just never know. In the end, what it comes down to is this. James Harden should be handling this better, but he's been in Houston all of these years. The greatest argument you could make against James Harden is that you wanted Dwight Howard, then you didn't want him. You wanted CP3, and then you didn't want him. You wanted Russell Westbrook, and then you didn't want him. So because of that, you could make that argument against him. But James Harden could retort by saying, I also wanted Daryl Morey to stay here. I also wanted Mike D'Antoni to stay here. And both of those dudes are gone. So why should I want to stay? You can take whatever side you want. In the end, he is a superstar player who I believe is handling this all wrong, but I'm not going to engage in that kind of perpetual condemnation, because I don't believe that wherever James Harden ends up, like if you traded him to Philly or you traded him to Brooklyn, that you would see what you're seeing. He has a far longer history of showing up and giving his all than he does of just sitting there and being a bit disinterested and apathetic because he's disgusted with his situation.
My position is perfectly consistent. Superstars do exert tremendous leverage in the NBA. And the teams that have them, particularly if they're under contract for 2 more seasons, they're not in the final year of their deal, want a king's ransom for them. Because we know the history of trades in the NBA is almost always whoever gets the best player in the deal wins the trade. That's how it goes. I don't care. You trade Shaq. Oh, but we got this guy and that guy and Odom and this. Whoever gets Shaq wins that deal. So the superstars have leverage, but the team that trades them wants a whole lot back, since they know they're going to lose the deal anyway. They might as well get the best deal they can. And this is where it's perfectly consistent. Superstars, yes. And James Harden is a superstar. One would think. But what you're seeing is he doesn't have superstar trade value. Teams don't want to give up what it takes to get him, Stephen A., because of the point I made that you reiterated and you threw in Dwight Howard. James Harden has wanted teammates, and those players have thought they've wanted to be teammates with James Harden. And usually after 1 year, they go, no, I don't want to be teammates with him anymore. And even if they have a good personal relationship, supposedly off the court, no, we're still boys. I just don't want to play basketball with him. Well, that's a problem. And Stephen A., it would be less of a problem if James Harden, in spite of the style where he monopolizes the ball, in spite of what I just mentioned, the dynamic with other star teammates, if Harden was perceived as a crunch time player, if he was a guy who'd won a championship, if he'd hit some of those threes against the Warriors and gone on to win the championship where they would have been favored if they got past the Warriors, then even the equation would be different. But I think GMs are sitting around going, okay, they want what for Harden? All that? And he's probably going to be unhappy in a year or two. And there's going to be an issue playing with teammates. And when I need him most in the playoffs, in the biggest moments, he's not the dude with the reputation or the resume that says, yeah, he's going to bring us there. I don't want to trade all that stuff for him. That's why he's still a Rocket. The Rockets aren't getting viable trade offers. That's why he looks bad.
They're not getting viable trade offers because they're asking for the farm for him. It's not that nobody wants him. It's that they don't want to give up the farm for him because, again, you don't want Houston part 2. You don't want to have an organization that completely evolves around James Harden where you have nothing else because you've given up all the assets that would surround him. But that's what comes with stars. Max, do you understand that if LeBron, listen, let me sound a little crazy for you here, okay? Certainly with LeBron, we know that LeBron is the greatest player in the world, okay? But if you sat up there and you went to the Golden State Warriors and you said, you know what, you can have LeBron, but we want Steph and Clay and 2 picks. And, well, wait a minute now. Now, pairing LeBron with them would be a different matter. But to sit up there and give all of that up for LeBron, what are we accomplishing here? Of course, that's an extreme. Hold on. Of course, that's an extreme case. I'm not trying to say it's an equivalent, Max. It's not. It's an extreme case. I'm simply saying that when you're great, It takes an awful lot to get you. So let's not talk about how, oh, they're not getting any offers for James. It's not that they're not getting any offers. It's that Tillman Fertitta has made it very, very clear this is one of the greatest players of this generation. We ain't giving him up for just anything. That's what this is about.
This is my point. This is my point. The analogy with Golden State would be, because really what they're looking for is Ben Simmons, right? The second best player on the team and some picks. Believe me, if Golden State could trade Klay Thompson and some picks and whatever else, but they got to keep Steph Curry because the Sixers would get to keep Embiid and get LeBron, they do it in a heartbeat. Teams don't want to trade even their second best player with stuff for James Harden. That says his trade value to the league is not that of a superstar.
That's not true.
Yeah,
I can promise you that's not
Harden's
true.
lagging play.
Who's he playing for?
And whether or not it makes sense, in the past 4 games, Harden has scored 20 points or less. That's his longest stretch since his final season with the Thunder back in the